Zoe, thank you for coming into Body and Soul HQ and for coming on Extra Healthy-ish.
Thank you, Felicity. It's always lovely to talk health, one of my favourite subjects.
Now,
and food, of course.
And you are so good at it, by the way.
Thank you.
How do you stay extra healthy-ish in your life?
Look, I'm all about sort of giving myself permission to be healthy. I think I've had my battles up and down in life. I've had anxiety, depression, IVF. I'm very open about sort of my flaws. I've learned to laugh a lot easier. I've learned to say no. I heard a great thing the other day. Instead of saying sorry, which I'm terrible, I say sorry all the time, is just to say thank you. So thank you for letting me be a little bit later or whatever, however you want to word it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Actually, I saw a meme the other day and I think it was to do with, 50 things you do before you're 50 or 40 before you're 40.
Yes.
And
I
number
think
one,
that's the same one as I saw.
maybe
Yeah.
I think it was.
And I resonated with that so much because my family's English and we were just taught to say sorry all the time.
But it just comes out of our mouths and we don't even
Particularly
think
as
about
females.
it.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
no more ladies.
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you is the new sorry.
No, sorry.
Now, for those listeners who
Yes.
didn't tune into Healthy-ish, remind us,
Yes.
tell us, what do hormones do exactly?
Okay, so hormones are produced by the endocrine system, and the long and the short of it is that they're chemical messengers. So they will tell your body whether you are hungry. They will help to basically regulate your appetite. They will regulate your blood glucose levels. They maintain your weight. They maintain your sexual reproductive organs. So they're pretty important.
And we have a hell of a lot of them.
We do.
200 plus.
Yes, we do indeed.
But 50 are the main ones?
Yeah, we sort of refine it down, but then again, we can sort of refine it down. Look,
We're not going to talk through 50.
we're not going to talk through 50. And I think what the key thing is saying, it's hormones which are specific to obviously male, female. It's specific to sort of what might be going on in your life as well. So we tend to kind of talk a lot about cortisol, insulin, thyroid. They're kind of the key ones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. They tend to be the main ones that we kind of gear towards. They tend to be the ones that also are most easy for your GP to kind of understand and test as well. And they tend to also be, for example, when you've got high cortisol levels, if you have high insulin levels, that's recognised as maybe sort of a cortisol fatigue that your body might be going through as well.
How do we recognise that they might be out of whack?
Yeah.
You just mentioned fatigue, and often we don't realise until after the fact, and we
Yeah.
look back and,
Yeah.
I just had an iron infusion because I'm very,
Yes.
very low in iron.
Yeah.
And it's just kicked in this week and
Yeah.
I feel amazing.
You look
and then
great. You're glowing,
Thank
actually.
you. And then I think back to a couple of weeks and I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I was so fatigued.
It's quite interesting because what we often don't have is a baseline. And I really try and sort of instill to any patient friend out there that we need to kind of take control of a sort of what is our baseline of health. And I do that. I always say to people, make sure you do have some good pathology. When I see a client, I just ask for all basic pathology, full blood count, but then I'll often ask them to dig a little deeper. So for example, if they're waking up with their heart beating in the morning, I'll get them to look at sort of things like their thyroid health, their cortisol, and you can get your AM cortisol levels tested really easily as well. If that's elevated, then you need to look at why. Why is that causing that? Could it be that they are having that their melatonin levels could be out of balance? We do find there's a lot of people that have sort of a bit of a reverse. Their cortisol levels high in the morning and their melatonin levels are low at night, which should be obviously the opposite. And that can simply be because their lifestyle has tricked and changed that sort of circadian rhythm. And so they need to start putting some really good lifestyle plans into place. These things can't be changed overnight. We've got to be consistent with the method that we're putting into play. And we also need to kind of pepper it with some, good food, good lifestyle, and a bit of get out of jail free cards,
Yeah, we like those.
Yeah.
I thought you said something really, helpful in Healthy-ish was to keep a diary.
Yeah.
And we hear this a lot, especially food diaries and what
Yeah.
have you, but how are you feeling diary, really?
So I call it a hormone diary with a lot of my clients. So basically I'll get them to kind of pinpoint maybe what those 3 top hormones, because you don't really kind of want to focus on 50. It's a bit overwhelming. So it might be that I'll say, look, let's look at blood glucose levels or your insulin levels. Okay, so let's work out in the day, where are you having those highs and lows? Where are you really craving? I often get people, because people don't necessarily know the difference between low blood sugar levels and fatigue as well. So I'll explain that, or hunger.
What is the difference?
Well, there's a lot of difference pathologically.
Okay.
But to simplify it.
Yes.
So, for example, if someone says to me, look, I'm hungry around two in the afternoon, I'll say, look, are you feeling that in your stomach? Like, are you feeling that within your stomach? Is that, your stomach grumbling? Because that just simply might be that you're hungry. If you're having low insulin levels, your insulin levels are being compromised, you're going to feel it more neurologically, because basically your main source of energy for your brain is glucose. So you're going to get that fogginess. If you're someone who's a bit more inclined to feeling a bit more depressed, it might be a bit of a trigger as well. You might notice your mood really drops. It can simply be that you can't remember how to spell something, you've lost your keys. So these can be a little bit of a trigger as well. And I think we need to have such wonderful empowerment of knowing how our body works. And I keep referring to this baseline. We've got to understand what our personal baseline actually is, and then be able to kind of use that as our barometer of kind of where our hormones are going as well.
Now, let's talk about food and
my favourite
hormones.
topic.
Because, I mean, this is your
domain.
area. Yeah. Let's talk about common food practices that might be affecting
Yes.
our hormones before we get into best foods to eat for your hormones. I mean, this question was inspired from one of your articles on your website.
Yes,
which
cool.
I thought was really interesting, because often we don't think about these things.
Yeah. So look, I think one of the key things is xenoestrogens. I think we need to understand where do they come from is one thing as well. So often they'll come from plastics, particularly when we heat plastics. You'll get plastics that are bendable. They've got plasticizers in them as well. They can often be a contributing factor as well. Even the things like, you'll buy tinned food, it's lined with plastic, Glad wrap plastic, it's just in abundance. It's absolutely everywhere. So they can mimic our own body's estrogen. And fine if you're having small amounts, but if you've got a bit of compromise already with estrogen, you don't necessarily want to destabilize how we actually use these things. The other thing also is that we often don't have the right balance of fats within our diet. We have that real imbalance of more of those saturated fats, or it might be those sort of trans fats in our diet. Unfortunately, Australian labelling laws is pretty lax. We don't actually have to label trans fats on our nutritional panel on the back. So people out there, you want to be that investigator, you want to look at the ingredient list. A lot of vegetable oils have been partially hydrogenated to actually get to the point of extruding that oil for usage. Partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated fats pretty much means the same thing. Okay, so look a little deeper in that as well. I think it's also understanding that we need to make sure we're supporting our liver. Liver is where we actually clear those methylation and those estrogenic pathways as well. You've got an enzyme called P450. We want to make sure that you've got a lot of abundance of this enzyme to break it down. So we want to make sure those pathways are working.
We don't talk about the liver much, do we? I think there's a lot of focus on the gut.
Look,
I'm
a liver junkie. I cannot stress. I mean, I've had so much of my own health issues throughout. I've done, IVF for 5 years. I then got Ross river virus. I've got a bit of a, health scare going on right now with a cyst that needs to be removed as well. So it's really important. And the key thing also is you can't just thump your liver all the time with toxins that we take, but also you can't just take herbs all the time. So the liver has to have breathing times, like where it doesn't have to be always stimulated to either be processing or cleaning out as well. And that's why we try to support people by giving them the right advice when it comes to supplements. We take supplements and we do cleanses and we do detox for short periods of time, or whatever that duration might be that your practitioner or GP or whoever it is recommended, to get the best effect. And then we support it ongoing with the right type of diet as well. We don't just keep taking these, and I keep stressing this because I'm seeing so many of my clients that are coming in taking 20 supplements, and it's you don't know what's working. Yeah. The other thing also is probably overloading what it's supposed to be doing. Pathology, again, I keep stressing this enough. When it comes to deficiencies, we can remedy those deficiencies as you just have with your, doing your IV or your iron infusion. Yeah. But again, we don't necessarily need to kind of keep going over the top. I am a fan, though, of some of those adaptogenic herbs. I do think they have a really beautiful place as well, but I can't stress it enough. Again, that these are not things that we take forever.
Yes, yeah. Can we just come back to the plastics? Because I think that how do we know if we're carrying this load, this plastic load, as it's often called, or we just don't?
Unfortunately, we don't tend to, we can't, there's no test that we can actually do.
No.
I think what I would probably do, again, when you're keeping that diary, I would actually have this as a plastic diary. So you might kind of look at how much of your, food is coming from plastic. Are you heating in plastic? Are you eating plastic as well? And try and mitigate and reduce as much as you can out of your diet.
What do you do in your kitchen?
Yeah, I was just about to say. So what I tend to use a lot of the glass Pyrex bowls as well. But the thing is, I mean, I eat a lot and I love eating, and food doesn't last very long in my house. So I never ever put anything but in the bowl that I actually served it in that night with a plate on top. You know, I've got a very tidy fridge. I clean my fridge. I'm limiting cross-contamination. I mean, if you've got a dirty fridge and you've got, yes, maybe you do need to be a little bit more cautious. I don't want to take any responsibility to anybody out there if they get food poisoning by my advice.
Yeah.
But I really think, to lessen the cost of, not only buying the plastic, but lessen the cost and our impact, putting food in a plate and covering it and then eating it the next day is, I think, the easiest way to reduce some of the plastic.
Good advice.
Thank you.
Thank you. What about, let's go back to balancing our hormones.
Yes.
How we can, structure our diet, what we should be eating. And first, sorry, I'm losing the word balance. We're talking about regulating.
Support or regulate,
yes.
I think is what we're going to say from now on.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think what we need to understand is where hormones and how hormones are made. Okay, so hormones are made by fat. So it's really important that we have an abundance of good fats in our diet as well. And I always say to my clients, again, there's not an exact measurement because everyone's an individual, and some people need more or less different hormones as well. So I say that if you can just have a small amount of a good fat, extra virgin olive oil, avocado, nuts and seeds. I'm a huge fan of hemp seeds. Hemp seed has basically got the exact ratio of omega-3, 6 and 9 for the human body. That's what we need.
Wow.
So we're more likely...
how do you use hemp seeds?
Oh, it's in my daughter's 9-year-old avocado sandwich when I can't be bothered to make a proper sandwich for her, Vegemite avocado hemp seeds. Sweet, savoury. I tend not to heat it. That's the one thing again. And as soon as I purchase it, I put it in a glass jar and I put it in the fridge as well because you don't want it to oxidise as much as you can. But you can throw it into your pesto. You can put it at the top. Yeah, salads. Spoon it onto steamed veggies at night time as well with a bit of feta cheese and some parsley or something like that. It's got a very sort of neutral flavour. It's not overwhelming. It's not like some of the other nuts or nut oils and things like that. So I find it's quite a good one to kind of hide into food without people even realising, even though I want them to realise it. But.
Yeah, great tip.
Yeah.
What other, aside from the fatty foods?
So again, it's very much related to fibre. So we need to really make sure that we're not only clearing our bowel out, because again, we'll get over toxic overload, but also you want to make sure that you've got those good fibres like what we call resistant starch or prebiotic that are feeding the bacteria, because there's a lot of links now that we look at sort of estrogenic or what we call dysbiosis, which is, the imbalance of the gut, and our hormones, and basically how we actually eliminate our hormones as well. So again, cross-section of different types of fibres in the diet, I think I'd be out of a job if people just ate the 5 servings of vegetables and 2 servings.
No, but 90% of Australians don't. So you're going to be in your job for
I'm going to be in a job for,
yeah.
Unfortunately. I love my job. I love what I do as well. And then I think it really does come down to those phytoestrogens as well. So these are plant-based estrogens. They're natural estrogens. There was a lot of controversy of whether these estrogens cause cancer. They don't. They don't cause cancer. There's so much more benefit in them that it outweighs there isn't any negative really, to be honest, as well. So there's some obvious things. We talk about soy products as well, but it's getting a cross section of those green leafy vegetables coming into our diet, those good sources of nuts and seeds. But then there's some foods that we can specifically sort of target. Like, so for example, I love magnesium and zinc. They're kind of these key critical kind of minerals that I just think we cannot seem to get enough of as well, because we use them so abundantly as well. We've got zinc in there to help with thyroid function. We've got magnesium, which is over 300 functions within the body. I mean, the nicest one that probably any of us will realise, if you take a little magnesium at night time, it will help you sleep, because everybody needs to improve their sleep.
What are some foods that
so you've got things like
zinc and magnesium?
Yeah, so when it comes to zinc, you've got the obvious ones like beef and animal products and oysters as well. But then again, lots of nuts and seeds contain zinc in there as well. And again, same with magnesium, you've got lots of nuts and seeds, and you've got the green leafy vegetables that really have the abundance. But there's also good grains as well. So again, I get a lot of my clients that don't eat gluten and don't eat dairy, but again, often if we're eating the unhybridized versions of these grains, because they've got a higher abundance of enzymes in them, people can actually tolerate, not if you're celiac or if you're lactose, because that's an autoimmune issue, but if you find that you've got a bit of an intolerance, if you're eating sort of a more densely unhybridized version, you've got a little bit more leeway in there as well. But again, they're rich in other, not just magnesium and zinc, a cross-section of other beautiful B vitamins, fibres, good fats as well.
What are some lifestyle factors that
Look, I mean,
can wreak havoc?
I think laughter is a really good one. No, not sweating the small stuff too much, and really teaching yourself it's okay to F up. I'm not sure if I can swear on this or not. I do like swearing a lot, by the way. It's a good release for me as well.
Feel free.
Fuck yes, that's awesome. So my daughter just gave me a funny look there. So anyway, I think that's kind of something that I've learned has been one of the best stress regulators for me. I think also, meditation. I mean, there's so many great forms of meditation. And I think the way we've got to look at meditation is it's not necessarily sitting down for 20 minutes and meditating. It's the neuroplasticis of teaching our brain to actually drop into those mindsets quicker. So that's why they advocate those 40 days of meditation, is because it takes that time to reweave that conscious behavior and that synaptic behavior. So we naturally just drop into that. I mean,
Do you meditate?
I did, and I have done meditation on and off for years. I mean, I've been in the complementary game for a long, long time, so I've done many courses, but I didn't fundamentally change the way I meditated until I actually did transcendental meditation and learned it properly.
Oh, so you actually went away? And
I actually went away and I did it for 5 days, and it was a game changer, absolute game changer. I then continued very much, and I was kind of in a bit of a height of, I was coming off the Ross River virus. It was very, very good because it was just before COVID as well. So I used it fundamentally and functionally, from that point on.
Yeah.
Do I do it as regularly now? No, I absolutely don't. But I actually can drop into that I use that mantra. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I go straight into saying my mantra. And my body just knows now how to get into a more meditative state and a more relaxive state, because I've reinforced that behavior so many times in my life that now it knows what to do as well. And I can't stress that enough. The diet is the same. We advocate that muscle hormones are the same. If we support them correctly, they do know, if you get a stressful, that fight or flight response, if you've taught yourself to kind of, cope with that, then we dissipate, we regulate some of those hormones that actually can overwhelm the body as well. And we just got to teach ourselves to be a little bit more resilient, and we've got to teach ourselves some good tools as well. I do love doing things like I have an infrared sauna every now and then. I know it's a bit of a luxury, but I do find for me that's kind of, I'm pretty naughty though. I do take my phone in there. So I quite like that some of these saunas, the phone doesn't work in as well. So I'm getting the phone out of it. Exercise, I mean, look, I have the most incredible husband who gets up at 4:30 every morning.
I have one of those as well.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he's trained Hugh Jackman for the movies. He's very dedicated to exercise as well. But he's such an inspiration for me. He's 54 years old. You wouldn't know that. He acts like a kid, which has its pros and cons for everybody out there. I keep reminding him, this is great. You're going to keep me younger when I'm older, right? But right now it's a fucking nightmare. But anyway. But again, I think what that's instilled in me is how incredible and how quickly you can feel better. I completely changed my exercise regime as I've got old. I'm 45 now. I don't do the level of high intensity at all. I have this 20-minute hill run that I do. It's incredible. I just run straight up one of the roads in Bondi, down, up another road, down, and I'm home in 18 minutes. I'm sweating. My endorphins are running through, and they're loving it. But also the other thing that's probably most functional about that is that I can do it anytime.
Yes.
Rain, hail or shine, it's not a big deal. It's only 20 minutes. And I think what that's done, it's taken a huge amount of pressure off the kind of exercise I was always doing previously, was to get up at 5:30 and get to the gym or whatever it might be. I still think they have their place, and it's very personalised of what you'd actually like to do. But for me, that run, the Bondi to Bronte, which I know is, no one doesn't like that. I mean, hey, it's pretty, it's God's country at its best, really, yeah. And yoga have been, for me personally, what's worked at this point in my life most successfully.
Just before we go, what's your take on hormone balancing supplements?
Yeah. Look, I think, so supplements, it's hard to kind of do a bespoke personalised supplement as well. So I often ask the clients, what are you wanting more? Are you wanting symptom relief? Or are you wanting to kind of sit down and put the pathway in place that's going to take time as well? Because there's two different approaches that you would take as well. If someone was coming to me just saying, I'm having extreme hot flushes, I'm feeling just completely anxious all the time. For me, it would be doing some high-dose magnesium. It would be getting some adaptogenic herbs in there just to try and down-regulate everything, to try and calm it down. Definitely we get in there with a cleanse and we try and clear those pathways out. And then, it's really important that, we work synergistically with all things that are, we work with our GP, we work with our gynecologist. They have got so much great information, but together it's better, if everyone's working together. And again, because I get so many clients going, one person said this, one person, and everyone seems to be pushing off each other. And I've got the most beautiful gynecologist I work with. She's my personal gynecologist as well as, and I just relish in talking to her because, again, there's things that I don't know. And it seems to be that, I think I heard a statistic that every 73 days, there's a new huge health trend that gets added into the mix.
73
days?
It's
some crazy short.
Wow.
And I was like, and we're talking massive amount of clinical science that's been put behind this, whatever it might be as well. And I was thinking, wow, how can anyone keep up? And so what we don't want is two mentalities I always talk about. You don't want to have to be wealthy to be healthy. It's really important that we actually be consistent and we be kind and we give people information in responsible positions like you and I are in, of information that they can access anywhere. You can become the controller of your health by just eating well. I really think food alone can do it. Most of us do not eat the healthy diet, but maybe you don't know how to cook, maybe you don't know how to add flavors together. You only need to have sort of 3 or 4 recipes. I always say to people, 3 or 4 recipes is all you need, and then you just trick them. You just kind of, last night, we eat salmon a lot. I made this beautiful tomato reduction sauce, and that has gone on the tuna, the salmon, the red meat, and it's gone on every single meal. My husband's a bit over it. Are you a bit over it now, Emily? No? But again, you don't have to, just by adding different sauces and flavors, and then you get diversity, and that's also what's critical as well. We need to make sure from everything from our microbiome to our interest that we're having diversity in the food that we're eating as well.
Yeah. Zoe, great advice.
Thank you
for coming on Extra Healthy.
Yes, thank you very much for listening, and thank you for listening, everyone.